Well, what an exciting time. That video was like so intense. That music too, I loved it. So good. Really matched the vibe of what it was like at winter camp. All right, before we jump too far into our message this morning, a couple of things. Number one, if we haven't met before, my name is Jason. So excited that you are here. I have the honor and privilege of introducing you to someone today. Cody, you can come join me on stage. Cody is, okay, yeah, you know what's coming. All right. Apparently you need no introduction. That's what I'm hearing right now. We did announce last week we hired a youth pastor, and I wanted to give you a chance to meet him. This is Cody, and Cody is somebody who really stood out head and shoulders among dozens of people across the United States that we interviewed. And there were a couple of people that we were who made it to that finalist stage, and really, we took that next step of deeper interviews and introducing them to our executive team. Cody was the only one who just unanimously across the board, everyone said thumbs up to him. Yeah, we can cheer. Yeah, there's a lot of clapping at this part. They're really excited to meet you, man. This is awesome. Cody, how about you tell everybody just a little bit, like, what does everybody in this room need to know about you?
Man, I'm so blessed to just be here with you guys, honestly. Duval's awesome, man. Come on, that's awesome. But my dad was a pastor for 15 years, and a good portion of that was being here at Duval. I remember when I was 6 years old, I was down in the little kids' room hanging out while my dad was helping things get going here, and it's really cool to be a part of it now. I'm also very, very passionate about the Lord. Like, that is something that has been on my heart, especially the last 3 years, just how God has continued to move in my life and move all around me, and I'm also just so passionate about what God is doing in this generation. He's doing something that's so unique and so special to the kids who are in high school and middle school in particular. And man, I'm so excited to just be a part of what God is going to do there. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, I want to do something together that's not like a normal thing we do on a Sunday morning. And if you're not a church person, this might be a little bit out of the ordinary. But what I want us to do is have an opportunity to pray for Cody together. And so what we do in a room like this, since we can't all pass the mic around, is I'm going to invite you just to reach out your hand towards him as we all pray together. And if you feel comfortable, you're able to just reach out your hand. Do that as I pray, and we're going to all pray as one church for this next season that God's leading us into. Jesus, we thank you so much that you brought Cody here, that you showed us the right next person to lead our student ministry. And as he steps into this next season, Lord, I ask that you would be so present with him, that he would be able to just sense how close you are, how much you love him, and out of that he would show your love to every person that he comes across. That Timberlake would be more of a place of your love and of your light because he's here, and that our youth ministry would grow not just in numbers, but also in the ability of those students to know and connect with you, God. We love you, we love Cody, and we are so excited for this next season. Amen. All right, let's give him one more hand. Yeah. Cody, I don't know if I've ever got 3 rounds of applause in a single Sunday morning, but that's okay. If you are in middle school or high school, you can head out with our crew over here, and Cody, you can join them as well. We got like an army of you guys here today, which is great. All right, many of you will remember a man by the name of Bob Ross, who from mid-1980s to 1990s hosted a show on PBS called, anybody remember? The Joy of Painting. And Bob Ross came on each and every week with this same look, the big hair, the light blue shirt, over and over and over again with this same color palette and the blank canvas. He would always paint these beautiful landscapes. And many of us remember him for a couple reasons. You might remember his soothing voice. You might remember these phrases that he loved to say, like, you can do anything you want to. This is your world. Or every day is a good day when you paint. Or I think most of our favorite, we don't make mistakes, just happy little accidents. Yeah, absolutely. Which is what I tell my kids when we're, just kidding, that's a joke. I never said that to them. Now, Bob Ross was interesting because he didn't feel this need to reinvent the wheel. That at his peak, 80 million people across America would tune in to watch him paint, many of them to participate, practice along with him. And as he did across 31 seasons, he just grew to be this figure that created consistency and calm in many houses, many TVs across America. And it wasn't until his cancer diagnosis that the show was eventually heartbreakingly taken off air. But there was something soothing about Bob Ross, about his consistency, about how he so easily connected with viewers and connected into different homes across our country. But it teaches me something that I think we've lost in 2026 in doom scroll culture, in 30-second reels. I think we've lost this. The power of consistency is underrated and under-celebrated. That whether you call it faithfulness or routine, perseverance or dedication, the power of consistency is so overlooked in our culture in 2026. You know, we've been looking for the last couple of weeks at different proverbs from a man named King Solomon who wrote 3,000 years ago. And there's this proverb that stands out to me not because it's so shocking, but because it's almost boring. It says this: ants, they are strong. The people in first service laughed when I said ants. I don't know why, but I gave you space to do it. That's okay. It didn't take. Ants, they aren't strong, but they store up food all summer. Like in a book that the perhaps wisest man who ever lived wrote to pass on to his sons as they would lead the kingdom after him, he felt it important to write this little line that talks about the relentlessness, the consistency, the repeated back and forth trips of an ant with a seed carrying food along the same route over and over and over and over again. Now that's Solomon 3,000 years ago. Today, I think we actually have started to rediscover some of the same truths. James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits, where he said that atomic habits are actually what create momentum for your life. That if you read 10 pages a day over the course of over the course of 10 years, you will have read 100 books. Just 10 pages a day. If you send one text, an encouraging text every morning to somebody in your life, over the course of 3 years, you will have sent around 1,000 seeds of encouragement into other people's lives. You know, if you chose today, you were going to commit to pray 5 minutes every single day to Jesus, you would be spending 30 hours a year aligning your heart with God's each and every year. 30 hours from these little seeds of consistency that you and I plant in our lives. Now, it is pretty easy to come into church and to hear a message about prayer or to hear a message about anything that you should do or should stay away from, and to say, I'm going to go home and I'm going to invest in this right now. I'm going to dive in. I'm going to hear this message on relationships, and I'm going to one time invest in this relationship. I heard a message on encouragement. I'm going to be encouraging today. Maybe I'll be encouraging all week, but it is difficult to do that day in and day out, especially for years. To create a life, an environment in which we consistently forgive people who hurt us, some on purpose and some not, but we forgive people because of the way that Jesus forgave us. That's difficult. To resist temptation, to have an eye and an understanding for what's not good for me, and even when I want to do that, day in and day out, resist, that is incredibly difficult. And it's why one of the authors of the New Testament, Paul, when he wrote to one of his mentees named Timothy, he writes, one of the churches that he plants in the city of Galatia, he writes this: so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Man, when I read this, who here has felt tired of doing good? Not in the big, broad, dramatic, exciting acts of good that you and I, every once in a while, have the opportunity to do. But I'm talking about, like, the laundry baskets are all full again. The mortgage needs to get paid again. we need to go back to the doctor again. We need to pick up our kid early from school again, to show up in the little ways in our life over and over and over, to do good in ways that weigh on us, to make us feel like nobody sees us, that makes us feel like nobody really understands what we're putting out or what it takes for us to show up in this way. How easy is it for us to get tired of doing what is good? And then what happens? Well, we don't reap a reward right away. It's not right now that something good happens. Paul tells the church in Galatia that it is at the right time that they will experience a reward for that good work. Now, if you're like me at all, you like the excitement and the drama. Like, we love stories of conquering fear. You might remember 2 years ago, this story that came out of Issaquah, a woman riding her bike, February of 2024, when she is attacked on the ride by a cougar. And if you have ever seen or experienced anything, even watching online of like an animal attack, it is terrifying. You want to get out of there right away. But her friends, all women in their 50s and 60s, they didn't run, they didn't escape, they didn't try to get out of it. They fought to get the cougar off. In fact, they were able to pin it under a bicycle and hold it down for 15 minutes while the authorities came. And because of that, this woman, Carrie, she was seriously hurt, but she survived because her friends stepped in. They were heroes. They were able to hold this creature down. These are the stories we tell, right? Like, if this happened to you, no matter who you are in that story, you're telling it at like every party, at every family get-together, every opportunity. It's going to your kids, and then it's going to your grandkids until they're like, Grandma, we heard that story already. These are the stories we like to tell. But the truth is that we can't schedule or manufacture these moments. Like, if we could, they would not hold any of the same weight or value. Many of us, we don't see news stories of, wow, that person was faithfully married for 4, 5, 6 decades, and then they passed away. Like, that doesn't make the news. It doesn't even make the videos we scroll through on TikTok or on Instagram or YouTube. We don't see these stories of like, mom came in and she took care of the kids and she made them breakfast every day. She dropped them off at school. She picked them up. She brought them home, made them dinner, put them to bed for 18 years straight per kid. We don't tell these stories, hardly ever. We don't see stories of faithful politicians who step in and they serve. And I know some of you are thinking, that exists? Because you don't hear stories about them. However, what we see is that, honestly, following Jesus is actually more of a journey of faithfulness than anything else. This journey of choosing to daily honor God, which can feel really mundane. And I'll just tell you, even for myself, I love to teach dramatic Bible stories. Paul and Silas, they're in prison, and they're in chains, and they're singing, and then there's this earthquake, and their chains fall off, and they're free, but they don't leave the prison. Oh, an amazing story. Elijah is in this, he's in this competition with these other false prophets, and he calls down fire from the sky, like amazing, larger-than-life stories from the Bible. These are more fun to teach, but when we look at stories of people who had huge impact throughout the Bible, we actually see that we tend to skip over most of their life. I want to look today at a character who's a little bit more normal. Now, he stands out. There's some significant things about his life, but how he chooses to use his standing in Israel is actually very telling. You see, here's a quick bio on Samuel. His parents were Elkanah and Hannah. Hannah was unable to have children for many years, and she prayed for a son. She vowed to dedicate him to the Lord, and the Lord answered Hannah's prayer. Samuel was dedicated to the Lord, and then he was left at the tabernacle. Don't get any ideas. I know. Your kids can be difficult sometimes, but we're not going to raise them for you. But they left him at the tabernacle. Samuel learned at the tabernacle, working alongside the other priests, to recognize God's voice. All Israel recognized Samuel as a prophet, that he would hear God's voice and then speak God's words. And he began to lead Israel in spiritual renewal. He was a priest, he was a prophet, and he was a judge, which is the name of the leaders that they had at this time in Israel's history. And so after his early upbringing and his time at the temple, he begins to emerge as something of kind of a prodigy in Israel. People are saying he's going to do great things with his life. He is going to lead us. He is something special. So then what does Samuel do? Well, you would know. We know the playbook. You start a conference. You invite everybody to come and pay money to get a ticket to come and see your brand. You get on Instagram, you get on social media, and you blow up. You make sure that everybody knows your name. But Samuel, he takes a different route. Samuel continued as Israel's judge for the rest of his life. Each year he traveled around, setting up his court first in Bethel, then at Gilgal, and then at Mizpah. He judged the people of Israel at each of these places. Samuel, this prodigy in his impact on Israel, sets up this predetermined route of his court, first at Bethel, then at Gilgal, and then at Mizpah, each and every year. This is his route. It's his route in his 30s, and then it's his route in his 40s, and then he turns 52, and it is the same route. He's then 61, and look at the space. He is Mizpah, Bethel, Gilgal, over and over and over every year, reconciling differences, helping people come together, working to prevent any sort of conflict that might turn into essentially tribal war in the people of Israel, speaking for God. And then occasionally, he went out of his way and he went back to his hometown of Ramah. But this is his route: Bethel, Gilgal, Mizpah. Bethel, Gilgal, Mizpah, over and over and over again through his life. Now, there's a few big moments in Samuel's life. You might recognize his name from a time that he got to coronate King Saul, the first king of Israel, or the time that he anointed future King David, the second king of Israel, who we talked about a little bit last week. But really throughout his life, it is these three over and over again: Bethel, Mizpah, Gilgal, over and over and over, the same route. And what we see in Samuel is the same thing we see from people like Bob Ross, that the power of consistency is underrated and undercelebrated. What happens if you pay your mortgage for 30 years? You're debt-free. You own a home. It is not an exciting and amazingly sexy thing to go in and pay off your mortgage each and every month, but you do that for 30 years and the home is yours. You walk 3 miles a day. After a year, you have walked 1,000 miles. For you and I, what I want you to hear is that consistency actually multiplies impact. When you and I take steps to follow Jesus or to live faithfully, consistency actually multiplies our impact. And this is true for you and I as individuals. It is also true for us as a church, that if we want to experience the kind of impact and fulfillment, the fullness of life that Jesus talks about, every follower of Jesus is invited to practice consistency. And I'm going to highlight 3 key areas that I think tap on the hardest parts for you and I to practice consistency in our walk with Jesus. 3 key areas to build consistency. Number 1 is relationships. That for many of us, we are good at having some sort of a social life. We talk to somebody, a few people in our lives. But how many of us have people who we have invested in with genuine questions about their life and about their heart, about their marriage, about their connection with God for years or decades? Imagine what happens. Just imagine the difference, and maybe some of you have experienced it when you have people in your life that you have connected with and invested with for years and years, and then you get into a crisis. You've got people who you can speak with, who can help lift you up. Imagine the difference between that and feeling all alone. Some of us know it all too closely. That when we don't have deep friendships that we have built over years and years, we feel just at our rock bottom when crisis hits and we realize how alone it really feels. Number 2 is serving. I remember I was about 16 when somebody asked at my church in Bellevue if I would start serving with the middle school group. And as a high schooler, I said, sure, okay, I'll see what I can do. And I showed up with some adult leaders. And for 2 years, I served with these middle schoolers. And I became an adult, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to keep going. For 3 more years, I served with this group of students. Week in and week out, often giving up weekends and PTO so that I could be a part of camp camps that they were invested in so that I could just speak into these students' lives and show them that they were cared about, they were loved by God and by other people, that they're safe adults in their life. And at the end of those years, it was time for me to go pursue my master's degree. I said goodbye and I moved to Denver. And it was a little bit of a weird thing. So many years investing in these students and having so little in the way of dramatic, exciting, huge stories to share with each one of them. But when I moved to Denver, they found out at my church that I had served with youth before, and they asked, okay, hey, would you come in and serve with middle schoolers again? And since I had been doing it at that point almost as long as I could remember, certainly as long as I was old enough to do so, I said, you know what, sure. It was only about 12 months in that I started serving again. And year in, year out, serving with the same group of middle schoolers as they became high schoolers. And I'll tell you, there's one young man by the name of Chance. And Chance was struggling the entire time with his relationship with God. He was working through it. And he got to this point where he didn't know for sure what he believed, but he knew for sure that he wanted to connect, that the church was the place that he felt safe and seen. And he brought his whole family. His family started coming, and they started following Jesus together. At the end of my time in Denver, I got the chance to baptize Chance, and his sister joined our staff team. After that, she got hired by a little-known church by the name of Timberlake in Washington State, in a city called Redmond. I don't know if you heard of it. And it was her and her husband that actually connected me to Timberlake, and the reason that I'm here today. She is one of the leaders that I respect the most on our multi-campus staff. Just an amazing woman after God. I got back, and I was invited to come back and visit that home church that I had been serving in. And I walk in, and I notice somebody on the stage who looks familiar. And I start trying to search through my memory, and I realize his name's Jeff, a young man who had been in my middle school and high school group, and then I had kind of lost track of what was going on in his life when I moved. But 8 years later, I come back, and he is leading the middle school group that I was volunteering at when I had left. Now, you and I, we love exciting stories. We love moments of crazy impact when we get to step in and it's dramatic. But when we serve with consistency over months and then years and then decades, God multiplies the impact that you and I are able to have. So for you, it might be time to say, I'm going to start serving somewhere. Of course, Timberlake has a number of teams we would love for you to consider serving on. But if it's not the right fit, or if you're saying, I'm not sure that I want to serve at the church, find a place to serve. Ask Acres of Diamonds. Get involved in our outreach ministries that connect with UGM and other partners. Get involved in our global outreach trips. Consider heading to Mexico to help build houses for people. There are so many opportunities for you to serve. The real question is just, are you going to take the step to do it? Are you going to take the step to say, I don't know that I have a lot. I don't really know what I'm going to input here, but I'm going to join a welcome team this week. When you walked in, many of you were handed a sheet that shows the different teams that you can join here. Many of you, you're going to say, wow, I know that I know how to speak with kids. I've spent a lot of time, maybe as a teacher or maybe as somebody related to childcare, connected with kids. I know how to speak with kids, and I am going to invest those skills here at Timberlake once, twice a month. Maybe even more often than that. Some of you are going to say, wow, I spend all my time with kids, and I want to serve on any other team except that one. And that is okay, too. We have teams all across this building and outside of this building, in this community, and across the greater Seattle area, and teams that go out across the world that you can get involved and serve in. And I'm telling you, if this is the one that puts resistance, you are resistant to taking a next step, I wonder if God actually wants to do something in your heart, in your life, in your mind that you don't see coming, but God does. And he's going to change your approach to your relationship with him. Not immediately, not like magic, but in consistent serving over time. Third, and perhaps the hardest one and most uncomfortable, is generosity. Because I think we all have a little bit in us that's don't tell me what to do with my money. So I won't. But I am going to talk a little bit about generosity here. Paul, who wrote that letter to the Galatians, also wrote to his prodigy, Timothy, who led a church at the same time. And he says this, teach those who are rich in this world, and let's be honest, we live in one of the richest times in human history, in one of the richest places in human history. I don't feel rich. Some of you, maybe many of you, don't feel rich. But I think we can still learn from this. Teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money. Man, I have had times in my life where it was what the number in the bank account and the trend on the budget determined my mood. It determined my anxiety. It determined how I felt about myself and my family and my future. And this is exactly what Paul is talking about when he says not to trust in their money. Why? Which is so unreliable. I'm confident every person in this room has felt this, that it is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. Tell them to use their money to do good. Across our world, it is one of the wealthiest times. It is also a time where it is so easy to see injustice and to see people who are left without even basic needs met. And the church, I am absolutely convinced, is the mouth and hands and feet of God to make an impact in this world, here, near, and far. And so many of us, and I go to this too, we think, oh, I would make such a big impact if God would just let me win the lotto, Mega Millions, and then God, I'll give you 10%. No, I'll give you 40. I'll give you half. I'll give you half of all the money, and then we'll make an impact. But it's actually from consistency that impact is multiplied. Like Samuel in Bethel, then Gilgal, then Mizpah. In Bethel, then Gilgal, then Mizpah. In the ancient Jewish world, they had this custom that was built into their structure, their way of life, called the tithe. It was 10%, their first 10% of their income that they gave to the temple and to the spiritual leading group in ancient Israel. Now, for you and I, most of us, I'm guessing, are not Jewish and would not follow the ancient Jewish law, but I find it an incredibly humbling model for me to look at the income that I have and ask, am I giving even 10% of it away? And so my wife and I have committed. We give 10% automatically out of our income. Every time we get a raise, it just automatically comes out. It's natural, honestly, for me, because for me and my wife, we grew up in households that were we grew up that way, their parents grew up in that way, and we were committed even when my family was in places where it was very difficult to give anything. They were committed to this consistent practice of generosity in their life. But I know for not all of us, this is like a natural thing, that generosity, especially generosity at this magnitude, comes easily. It's a journey of generosity and a journey of faithfulness. But I want to give you just a peek into the story of a man from Timberlake named Ron who went through this same journey.
Hi, my name is Ron, and this is my journey of generosity. I grew up in Bellevue, Washington. It was a faith-based family. When I was first a believer, I heard about the principle of tithing. And it was actually really easy to tithe because I lived at home and maybe I was making $500 a month. So throwing in $50 wasn't hard. Then once we got married, my wife and I started having kids right away. I owned my own business and she stayed home with the kids. It was really challenging from an economic standpoint. And all that time she wanted to tithe, and I was like, no, we don't need to tithe. I had a plan that I would start with 1% in 1991, 2% in 1992, and then 3% and so on. And even that I was not consistent with. I hate to say it, but I would even skip church so we didn't have to give that week. It was just a real battle for me. Then I went out to lunch one time with a buddy, and he was talking about how he and his wife were kind of having some marital problems, and a lot of it was surrounded around money. And he ended up telling me about his struggle with tithing, and that he had made this decision finally for his marriage, that he would write the check and give it to his wife to mail. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I came home to my wife, Deanne, and I told her, okay, hon, I'm in. I'm finally in. So I said, no matter what, I'm gonna write our tithe check. But once I made this commitment, we had kind of an anti-miracle in my perspective, is that we actually had one of the worst paychecks I've ever had. So I begrudgingly told my wife, I said, see, I commit to God, and I acted quite honestly like a little baby, and I said, but I'm gonna go ahead and write the check, because I told you I would do it, significantly less than we ever thought it would be. The next morning I go to my office, and there was someone they were gonna assign me some commissions. And he said, hey, I happen to have a check here for you. And the check was the exact dollar amount of my tithe check. So I actually have a copy of that I keep in my Bible, of both checks, as a reminder of just how God can reach even the stubborn, hard-headed people like myself. When it comes to giving, one of the big challenges is, will my little amount make a difference? But when we think about giving away, just when you see the videos, even in church, when they show what our giving has done, you just realize, wow, I'm making a difference in this world. So I think that when it comes to generosity, it's complete surrendering. It's say, Jesus, it's all you, I'm all in. And I trust that I'm going to follow you every step of the way. And then I get to see the impact that Jesus can make in our lives. We feel like it's such a privilege that God has blessed us with some additional resources that we can bless others with. It's easy for us now. It wasn't at the beginning, but it is certainly now after 28 years.